Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have an update with Borealis Mining. CEO Kelly Malcolm is with us today. The company put out a production timing release earlier this week and closed the acquisition of Gold Bull last month. The format of today's session will be an update from Kelly, followed by Q&A. So if you have questions, please enter them into the comments box on the right-hand side of your screen. And as always, before we get started, today's presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to learn more about those, you can find them in the presentation on the company's website. And with that out of the way, welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks, Magda. Thanks for having me on. And thanks for everyone for listening and coming in. I wanted to give this update because we did put out, as Magda mentioned, timing to production, which I'm really, really excited about. We've been working on this for a number of years at this point and are now in a position to be able to get sustained continuous production out of the Borealis mine site. So what we're going to do today is a walk through the corporate presentation. We'll do it relatively briefly, but at least introduce it and refresh it to those new or not overly familiar with the story. Following that, I'd like to do a little site tour with Verify, and I'll focus on Stockpile, where near-term production is coming from, but also, and I've been coached on this from our legal team, but we'll do a very forward-looking look at where future production very likely will come from and the work that we're doing to get that out of the ground, ideally towards the end of 2025. So with that, we'll just do that. Okay, and Magda, we're all good here? I'm assuming we are. So welcome to Borealis. This is our corporate deck. You can see a look at the mine site here. We'll go into this deeper in a moment. This will be very, very forward-looking. Please be mindful of this. Please review this disclaimer on our website. There are historical 2011 resources present. However, they are exploration targets as we see it, and everything presented herein with respect to mining and resources is conceptual in nature. So Borealis, Nevada focused. We've got the Borealis Project, Sandman Project, the Big Balds Project, kind of scattered towards throughout northern Nevada. The Borealis mine itself is 100% owned, fully built, fully operations ready, ADR facility on site. We can pour doré bars, we can heap leach, we can go blasting, we can go mining. It is an operationally ready project, which is pretty unique. Wonderful exploration potential. However, we will probably quickly skim over that today. This is more of a production-focused update. And speaking of that, imminent production. So yesterday we announced that we will be starting to crush a mineralized material on June the 9th with an expectation of our first gold pour in July. And that will carry forward. We'll talk about that in a moment. Really great team here. We announced the appointment of Bob Buchan to the chairman role yesterday as well. Bob's been a great sounding board. We'll talk about him in a moment, but really exceptional mentor for me, and hopefully will be a real benefit to shareholders. In terms of project readiness, if we're looking at Borealis as a mining company, what we have is Borealis that is production ready, as mentioned, fully permitted, fully built, capital all sunk, lots of historical infrastructure in place that is fully functional. And again, a historical 1.8 million ounce measured indicated resource base. Next up on the block, if we're looking at production as well, is Sandman. That was the flagship asset of the company we just bought called Gold Bull Resources. 500,000 ounce resource base, really, really attractive PEA. We'll briefly look at that as well. And really interestingly, a property-wide plan of operations, and I'll touch on that in a moment. Lots of potential for growth there. And then one that I actually just drove to 2 or 3 weeks ago is the Big Balds Project with a D, and that is just south of Elko, right beside the Bald Mountain Mine owned by Kinross. Looks really intriguing, some great targets, and we hope to test that at some point in the future. Structure-wise, there's 115 million shares out, 30 million warrants, 2 million broker warrants, fully diluted 153 million shares. As of about 30 minutes ago, market cap of 70.3 Canadian. Stock's done relatively well. We've had some selling pressure related to a financing here and over here related to the conversion of Gold Bull shares into Borealis shares, so some expected selling. But overall, trades very well, lots of volume. I'm pretty happy, although I'd like to see, of course, the share price going upwards. Structure-wise, insiders own 10%. I have about 4% of the company. Otherwise, very well held by insiders and management. Rob McEwen, holding about 14% of the company, participated through the acquisition of a large block of stock while we were private, as well as most recently participating in our $10 million placement. Eric Sprott, as of our recent financing, is also now an insider with about 10% of the overall shares. For a relatively new company, we've got a wonderful institutional shareholder roster who are very supportive of our growth plans and our objectives, and really great retail base as well. And then this 12% is represents the Gold Bull share conversion that we did through our takeover. So just as a quick reminder, the Borealis Mine itself, we picked up in April of 2023 for 100 grand cash. 20% of our shares on listing should have been worth $5 million. Those shares were sold from the vendor, who was Waterton, to Rob McEwen, which is how he got his initial position, as well as some additional shareholders. Recently, we completed, as Magda mentioned at the beginning of this call, an acquisition of Gold Bull Resources. Gold Bull has a really great asset base of Sandman and Big Balds. We acquired them at about 60 cents per Gold Bull share, or 0.93 Borealis shares for every Gold Bull share. That's basically a double for them at the announcement of the deal, and values Gold Bull at about $8.9 million Canadian, or 13.5 US dollars per ounce in the ground. So I think both are quite compelling transactions for Borealis shareholders, and speaks to the types of deals that we look to do in our M&A strategy, which is an integral part of our growth plan going forward. So team, Bob Buchan is chair. Tony McCooch was in that seat, but he's very much focused on Discovery Silver and has left a number of different boards. So Bob, we're very happy to have guiding the ship here. Previous founder, CEO, chairman of Kinross Gold from inception through to his retirement there when he left. I think it was the third largest gold company in the world. So he knows how to build big gold mining companies that are highly profitable. Greg Gibson, previously CEO of Sprott Mining. Rich Patricio, co-founder of Next Gen Energy. Christina McCarthy, previously built and sold Paycore Minerals to i-80 Gold and now sits on their board. And those that don't know me, previously worked with Amex Exploration in Quebec, where we went from basically a grassroots project to what will end up being, in my opinion, a gold mine in the coming years. On the ground, we've got Andreas Steckenborn and Ian Campbell. Both I worked with in the past at Detour Lake. Then they went on to have some pretty amazing careers. Lysana Lewis is our CFO, worked in and around Nevada for 20 years or so, really highly experienced and very helpful to our growth plans. And Jen Thor as well as our corporate secretary. So the Borealis Project, again, I'll just go quickly through this because I've done this in previous webinars here, but fully permitted, Nevada-focused, and fully built processing facility. Historically, 600,000 ounces came out of this project, largely from oxide heap leaching, fully permitted. There's a big disclaimer here. These are historical resources from 2011 as part of a pre-feasibility study, but they showed measured indicated 1.8 million ounces at about 1.28 grams per ton. We've got some equipment on site, operational heap leach pad, ADR facility, and we'll talk about the stockpile processing in a moment, but we are going to genuinely start producing gold going forward. Great exploration potential, but again, I'll leave that for another webinar when we focus more on the geology. Great neighbors here, Newmont partnered with Headwater, as well as Hecla Mining. Hecla in green, Newmont and Headwater in pink. Snapshot of the mine site with the a prominent oxide trend in red, and then a deeper sulfide body in orange or yellow here. We'll take a look at this in verify. Real exploration potential. Again, I won't dig too deep into it, but very underexplored property with, and I'm an exploration geologist, and this is what really intrigued me about the property at the beginning, was the potential to find significant oxide gold deposits. We certainly think there's real potential, real value, and we're looking forward to testing some of those ideas in the near future. This also just kind of validates the potential for gold on the site. You can see these are grab samples of all oxidized gold taken at surface. I would argue anything better than orange is quite significant. And there's lots of clusters showing these big anomalous faults, that many of which have not been explored or tested to date. So lots of upside potential there, and a ton of data that was acquired. Again, we'll put an update out on that soon. We're just at the final stages of our compilation and modernization of all this data that we acquired when we bought Borealis. We announced about a month or so ago some really interesting hits on the Cerro Duro project. We'll look at that and verify in a moment, but it is part of an area that we hope to exploit in the coming years. We expanded mineralization below the pit, drilling 30.5 meters of 4.4 grams with a beautiful 6 meters of 15.6 grams, 15.16 grams, all in oxide below an existing pit, showing some of the potential that we have for easy exploration just around the known zones. We've got our sulfide body as well. We put out some news before the holidays on that. Wonderful big body of consistent mineralization, something again we'll look at in the future. For now, we're very focused on oxide mineralization, oxide exploration, and most importantly, oxide exploitation. Borealis high-sulfidation epithermal system, really simple geology. We're not reinventing any wheels here. This is very textbook alteration, textbook deposition of mineralization, and textbook structural system. So once we start digging in, doing our exploration, we're quite confident that we will have some successes with the drill bit once we get into the regional exploration program. So the reason for the call today, this is a photo I took in June of 2023 of our ADR facility in action. This is a fully functional plant that is able to process gold from our heap leach through our carbon columns, through to our stripping circuit, and eventually into our furnace, where we are able to pour doré bars. This is a very simple setup. Actually, I need to update this. In our press release yesterday, as part of our upcoming production program, we did a 10-ton bulk sample that was submitted to McClellan Labs in Sparks, Nevada, several months ago. And they did a number of different tests looking at optimization of the mineralization to maximize value for us, for our shareholders. One of the interesting findings was that we can crush to a much coarser size than was utilized in the past and still get essentially the same recoveries. So that's a dramatic cost savings, going from 5/8 of an inch to a 2-inch rock crushing size. So we're going to be crushing, stacking on conventional agglomerated heap leach pads that are fully permitted right beside our stockpile, and we'll take a look at that in a second. We then use our ADR facility, and ADR facilities adsorption, desorption, refining, basically adsorb the carbon, take it off the carbon, and then refine the gold to generate final doré. And then we sell our doré offsite to a number of different refiners, for which we're actually shopping around a little bit because rates are very competitive in what seems to be a market where you can't get your hands on physical gold. And we'll take a look. Right, we're just going to skim through Sandman at the moment, and then we'll take a look at the site, and I'll get into more detail on our stockpile program, but also on our broader future mine plan. Snapshot of the plant itself, fully operational. We've got two things that we're working to do ahead of this June 9th start date. That's replacing some of our pumps that pump the water and cyanide fluid to and from our heap leach pad, and also modifying our kiln, which is where we treat our carbon after the gold has been stripped to reactivate it and allow for new absorption of gold through the circuit. You can see some bars we poured in 2024. I'm hoping and expecting that the 2025 bars will be much prettier, much richer in gold, as these are the result of what's called residual heap leaching, or basically washing the old heap leach pads to generate or extract the final remnants of those pads. So we'll be seeing fresh ore. We should have much higher grade doré bars through this upcoming process. A little bit on Sandman. This is a really interesting project. It's not huge by the 2021 resource standards, showing an indicated resource of 433,000, of which 265,000 of that is in the oxide category. But it's, in my eyes, very compelling for near-term mining and also has real upside as well. There was, as mentioned, the 2021 resource statement completed, but also a 2023 PEA that shows some really, really compelling economics. At $1,800 gold, the 2023 PEA shows a really nice NPV of $120 million post-tax at a 6% discount, strong IRR of 81%, very low payback period for a 9-year mine life, and really intriguingly, a very low CapEx, of which I think by the time we get to feasibility or pre-feasibility study, which is something that we're working on, getting some bids right now, I think that number probably goes to $55-60 million US, but still very, very cheap for an asset that will yield 35 to 40,000 ounces a year over 9 years. Low all-in sustaining costs, really nice average grade. And one of the reasons that CapEx is cheap is the economic study, and our future economic studies looked to, and we will look to as well, utilize existing infrastructure at the Borealis site to minimize capital costs at what will be our second mine in the Borealis portfolio. Sorry, 1 second. So one thing that's really fun is looking at sensitivity studies here. The most sensitive factor in the preliminary economic assessment is the price of gold. And this one is certainly very, very sensitive to the gold price. So obviously, as we're seeing these continual upticks day after day, hitting as high as $3,500 when I woke up yesterday, this project becomes more and more valuable. And at $3,000 US gold, NPV showing $420 million, IRR showing better than 200%, that'll result in a very short payback period and a really meaningful increase in annual cash flow projections. So we are looking to fast track this. We've solicited bids for pre-feas or feasibility studies with a number of different firms, and hope to review that shortly and an update on our progress once we actually do sign a contract. But look forward to that in the future. Exploration potential, it's vast. There's really some nice targets. We're just kind of deciding where we deploy our exploration dollars, whether it's on the Borealis site or Sandman or both. And again, we'll come out with an exploration update in the coming months as well, if not sooner. But I think there's real potential to dramatically expand upon that 433,000 indicated current resource. And then Big Balls, as I mentioned, I was out there a couple of weeks ago. It looks really intriguing, right beside a huge Kinross mine that historically has done over 8 million ounces of production, potential for porphyry-type copper gold, Carlin-style sediment-hosted gold, some skarn mineralization. It's never been tested and has some really, really interesting and intriguing targets. So what I'll do right now is just switch over to our mine site here and just give you an idea of what we're up to in the coming 7 weeks. So we announced that we're going to start production. That'll be done through our stockpile. So just as a quick overview of the site, our deepest pit is the Freedom Flats pit. We've got our ADR plant, office, lab, etc. Heap leach pad, East Ridge, Northeast Ridge. There's 2 pits that are buried right here that we'll talk about in a moment. Again, with that forward-looking statement in mind. And then over on the west, we've got the area that we call JRCD that again we'll look at with that forward-looking cap on as well. So the upcoming June 9th production, which is going to be crushing, stacking, heap bleaching, or cyanidating, and then processing mineralization, comes from this area here. So for context, this is our heap leach pad, or actually this entire block over here is our contained heap leach pad. This is the area here that we're going to be stacking new mineralization on. For those new to the process, essentially heap leaching, you have a contained area, which you can see this black liner down here. You stack and then you fill it with a series of pipes that are able to collect fluid. You cover those pipes up with crushed ore. You put these, you can see these little black lines running down, which are basically garden hoses with holes drilled in them to allow for fluid to leak over and crush the mineralization. You can also use these wobblers or sprinklers, which result in these wet spots that you're seeing on this pad. So, and then from there, sorry, the gold-laden fluid is then collected. It goes down this ditch into our ADR plant where it goes through our carbon columns. We'll look at that in a moment, and then eventually turns into doré. So we've got our stockpile of mineralization over here. So this represents 327,000 tons of mineralized material that, based on both our modeling, but also most recently the bulk sample that we did, contains about 0.55 grams per ton of ore, or 0.016 ounces per short ton. And what we're going to be doing is setting up a crusher spread right around here and placing that mineralization onto this heap leach pad and then irrigating it. That'll yield roughly, if we assume about 70% recovery as indicated by the bulk sample, that'll yield about 3,750 ounces, hopefully a little bit more if we can get the recoveries up, that will recover over the coming 6, 7, 8 months. So one of the critiques or comments or questions that I got from our release that came out yesterday is, okay, so that's $12+ million in revenue US, but then what? So where do we go from there? And this is where my forward-looking statement will come in place, because these are not mineral resources nor reserves. They are conceptual in nature. But what we would look to do next is go up over here to what we call the East Ridge Gold View Pit. And for context, I'll just put you in place. So here's our ADR plant. There's our heap leach pad. And there is our stockpile of mineralization. Here is our fully built and accessible stockpile, heap leach pad, and then our haul road to and from that stockpile right into the pit. So it's already got roads built. It's got a waste rock dump built with access to it as well. It's even got some blast holes already drilled into the asset. So this thing is ready to go into production. And one of the questions that I also get is, look, you raised $10 million. How do you expect to bring this mine on to or back into play with that little money? And the answer is this: it is built. It is operationally ready. There is essentially no capital requirements aside from mobilizing contractors to site to start blasting and mucking this ore out of this pit, putting it into the crusher, putting it onto the pad, putting it into the plant, all of which you can see directly in front of you. So it's a very, very low capital project. If anything, the only thing we would do is maybe prepay or pre-sell some gold just to have some extra working capital. But we are financed for the stockpile crushing operation. We are financed for, assuming all goes well with that stockpile crushing operation, we are financed to advance into future production profile. And because the mineralization targets here are just that, and they are not current reserves nor resources, unfortunately, we're not able to provide full guidance, but we will be looking back, similar to what Integra has been doing with their Florida Canyon mine, similar to what a number of different operations do, Sierra Madre. There's a number of producers out there doing just that. So to answer the question that did come up is, okay, 5,000 ounces, what comes next? This comes next. A fully accessible, fully operationally ready, oxidized. You can see the oxide mineralization through the pit, also trending up the wall into this unmined area and then into another oxide pit called Northeast Ridge. So we've got plenty of mineralization to begin exploiting following our stockpile crushing program. I'm really excited about it. We've been engineering and permitting and doing all the fun stuff with our heads down, trying to get ready for this. But we're now in a position where we are comfortable to say that we expect continual revenue from Borealis for the time being. We will update shareholders once we get a firm handle on when the actual restart will begin. But we are targeting towards the end of 2025, which will coincide really nicely with the end of the crushing, and it'll be a relatively seamless transition into fresh ex-pit material back onto that leach pad. So in terms of, actually, we'll take a quick look in the ADR because I think that's an interesting thing for those that are new to heap leaching. So again, just to situate you, there's our heap leach pad where we're going to be stacking. This ditch contains a number of pipes that collect gold-laden solution that was extracted from the ore. Basically, in a very simplistic sense, that solution then runs through these 5 carbon columns, which act like a Brita filter, except instead of filtering out smells and things from your drinking water, the impurities in this case are gold and silver and other metals. So they bond to the carbon. What we then do is go into the plant. We take our carbon out of the columns, run it through a number of different operations here to remove the gold from that carbon material. And the eventual result is pouring doré bars. And as mentioned, we are fully prepared, fully operationally ready to do so. And I think I'll leave it at that as an update here. We're on top of the production. Again, we're focused on exploration. We're also very focused on M&A activity. I still think, as you all do, looking for good opportunities in the market. We also are doing the same and looking at assets and projects that we think are undervalued or would be really synergistic with our business plan. So we do anticipate additional transactions in the future. And we've been very busy on that front as well. So that's a little bit of what we've been up to. And I think with that, we can, with that, we can go to the Q&A period if that works.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. So just an audience question to start off with. Do I understand it correctly that we should not expect any more dilution in the coming 1 to 3 years, granted everything goes smoothly with the coming operations?
Great question. At this point, no. Although, if we do want to build Sandman, depending on our cash flow out of Borealis, we don't have a clear indication of what that cash flow looks like, although it certainly is getting much more appealing, Frederick, as gold moves up and yeah, it certainly looks more and more attractive day by day. If we want to push Sandman forward, perhaps we'll do some financing to advance that. Otherwise, M&A activity may result in a financing. But with what we've got right in front of us, I don't anticipate dilution. I'm a big shareholder here, and I don't want to dilute myself any more than absolutely necessary. So yeah, to double up on that, M&A and building a new facility would result in dilution, but arguably that's not overly dilutive and rather accretive in the long run. So that's what I've got for you there, Frederick.
Thank you. And then the question that was emailed in earlier today is Borealis looking at further acquisitions this year, and can you give us any color on assets or jurisdictions?
Yes, and I certainly can't give you color on assets. I wish I could, but I think I'd be breaking some rules there. But we are looking absolutely in and around Nevada. I would travel a little bit further afield into the surrounding states. But what I like about having everything Nevada focused, or at least geographically focused around there, is we're not looking at huge operations. We're not looking at big 10 million ounce gold deposits. We're looking for things that I can finance without really killing the corporate structure. So things that are kind of under 100, maximum about $150 million capex, things that can deliver 20 to 30 to 40,000 or $1 million free cash flow per annum. But what's interesting about doing that is we can utilize shared management across a number of these different operations and minimize our G&A costs, because that can be what kills smaller mining operations, is too much overhead. So by keeping everything nice and close, we can minimize that G&A cost and ideally maximize cash for shareholders.
Thank you. And just about the Borealis Mine production plan, with the study suggesting potential for similar recoveries with an increased crush size, is Borealis planning for 2 or 3 stage crushing with this program?
2 stage.
Okay.
Historically, it was a 3. And then actually, deep way in the past, in the 80s, it was a 2-stage crusher. Throughout the 2010 kind of debacle, it was a 3-stage, but we're going to a very simple 2-stage crusher setup. Should be quite easy. Nothing's really easy, but it shouldn't be overly onerous to do.
Got it. Thank you. And just touching on the stockpile and mining rates, what sort of mining rate should we expect for the stockpile, and how long could this material provide cash flow for?
We're targeting 5,000 tons a day. They're going to be running about 6.5 days, and allowing for some maintenance per week, only on day shifts. And that'll take about roughly 3 months to go through that pile. And then this is kind of the confusing part. If you're new to heap leaching, there's a residency period for gold extraction. So the first ore that we place on the pad, which will be June 10th, the first day that we start cyaniding ore, and it'll only be a chunk of that stockpile, it'll take 90 days to get the vast majority of the gold out of that material. However, to completely exhaust that stockpile, you'll look at 90 days after the last ore is stacked on the pad to get a complete extraction of that material. So the nice thing is we'll have relatively consistent revenues for about the first 6 months or so, and then they'll tail down. But I do hope to be able to supplement that with new mineralization coming out of the pits.
Okay, thank you. And then looking at the transition to mining from the pits, would you be looking to complete a formal study such as a PEA before mining from the pits would start at Borealis?
No, we would like to get one out. I'd like to get an updated resource statement. We've been doing a lot of internal engineering work that's been supplemented by a number of different consultants. We had a really great operations guy on site for the past few weeks, really helping us out. We've got a very, very strong board and an experienced management team. So we're comfortable kind of getting going. And then once we do our updated resource statement, whenever we're able to sufficiently drill the existing mineralization, we may, and hopefully likely will update and provide an economic analysis and mine plan alongside of that, Magda. But at this moment, no, I just want to get going. Gold at these prices, I'm desperate to get it out of the ground, and yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then touching on Sandman, can you speak to how the latest executive order from March 2025 to increase U.S. mineral production could expedite permitting there?
Yeah, 100%. I've been actually chatting with a really interesting lawyer out of California, Martin Stratt, who who's coming up with some really intriguing and interesting ideas, looking at actually, this isn't answering your question about executive order, but it still is interesting. There's a big push to go back to the Mining Act of, I believe it's 1872, which is the basically the Extractive Measures Act for the USA, and people are getting quite creative with looking at ways to fast track extraction. In terms of the executive order, I don't, and I have not seen any clear indication of property timelines speeding up. Although many of the states, Idaho in particular, have come out with their own measures to sort of coincide with the executive orders that were enacted or signed. But I haven't seen a Trump stamped let's put this into production tomorrow yet. But I think that will happen pretty soon, and hopefully it has some bearing on Sandman, and there's an expedited process. But the nice thing about that project, relative to many others, is it was owned by Newmont prior to Gold Bull. Newmont spent a huge amount of money on the project in order to maintain it. A lot of that money included a massive property-wide biological study, archaeological study, and also they drilled water wells around most of the existing deposits. So for us to get our permitting done, I don't think it will be an overly onerous process at Sandman, in contrast with many other projects out there.
Got it. Thank you. And then touching on the board change, with Tony McCooch not standing for re-election at the AGM, is Borealis looking to fill a board seat?
Not at the time being. We've got a really strong group that's helping us and guiding us here, and we are looking at different and various transactions. So we're comfortable with our team right now. I get a lot of guidance, sometimes more than I necessarily want, but that's a good thing. And as we do additional transactions, Magda, there's the possibility of someone coming along and jumping on there, but we're not soliciting anyone or looking for additional people right now.
Got it. Thank you, Kelly. And can you remind us of the company's current cash balance?
Yeah, we've better than 10, I would say. We've got we just raised 10. We did a gold sale recently, which was announced a little while ago. We've got another small sale coming up, so call it 10, somewhere in that realm. We have been spending money to prepare for this upcoming stockpile program, but we're in a very strong position cash wise.
All right, thank you. And Kelly, can you walk us through the next few news items that might be expected from Borealis?
Sure.
Two.
Yeah. So some of them I kind of touched on earlier, but continual updates on this pathway to production. I'd like to guide the shareholders along and have everyone come for the ride. So as things come to site, here's the update here. So we'll have continual production type updates. I do want to have a kind of exploration upside release at some point once we get all that data compiled and prepared. We're hoping to put out a kind of targeting update, an update on advancement of Sandman. That will be likely the initiation of pre-feasibility or feasibility study, as well as some metallurgical work and some hopefully some exploration drilling alongside of that. And I think that's quite a bit, but also exploration plans and targets and drilling plans basically at Borealis. So we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We're cashed up, like I mentioned, so looking to generate some buzz here, particularly going into this production period, which I think is genuinely a pivotal moment. And particularly when you look at comps and companies that, even if it's not big, but gold production is gold production, revenue is revenue, and it brings in a totally different audience that looks at financial statements over blue sky potential, and it's something I'm really looking forward to getting going. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, Magda.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Now, it sounds like there is a lot of news to watch out for. Was there anything else you wanted to mention that we did not get a chance to get to?
I don't think so. I think that was a great update overview. And to anyone listening that has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. I love speaking to shareholders and prospective ones as well. So happy to chat anytime.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you to the audience. And as Kelly mentioned, if anybody does have any questions we did not get to, please reach out. And with that, thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Magda.
Thank you.